Hello and welcome to another edition of your favorite parliamentary news magazine program, The Chamber, right here on Citi TV. My name is Duke Mensah Opoku. It's my pleasure to bring you this week's edition. We'll take a break here. When I come back, we'll present what we have in store for you this week. So it's been a week where we've not had one dominant or major issue dominating discussions. It's been a potpourri of matters on the floor and, of course, in and around Parliament House. But we've curated everything you need to know, being the major happenings in Parliament, the headlines and the major stories in the recap segment for you. Here's the recap. The minority leader raised the objection after a Deputy Minister for Finance, Dr. John Kuma, moved the motion.
Board have ruled and have now provided a dichotomy between a debating quorum and a decision quorum or a voting quorum, pursuant to Article 102 and 104 of the Constitution. Looking at the composition of this Parliament, Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure you will not be in contempt of the Supreme Court if you proceed to put a question when we do not have a voting quorum as is required in Article 104 and the ruling of the judges of the Supreme Court. We are no longer masters of our own procedure by that ruling. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, you may not proceed with a question. This is not a voting quorum. We don't have a voting quorum, and therefore, Mr. Speaker, Article 110 was to serve our purpose, that we are masters of our own procedure. That have been called to question. We are no longer masters of it. No decision will be taken in this House without more than one half of this House.
The Majority Chief Whip did not raise further concerns about the objection.
We are in total agreement. In fact, we can hold on with the question. And that was the agreement I had with the whip, so there's no problem with that. Speaker, we put an eyes on the question and proceed to take item 14.
The minority leader later at a press briefing called on the president to open the country's land borders.
Our call on President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the President of the Republic of Ghana, supported by his Minister for Health and Minister for Interior, to take urgent practical steps for the reopening of Ghana's land borders to allow for free flow of persons and goods across ECOWAS and the rest of the world. Post-COVID, we are not out of the woods yet, but we want to see a return to normalcy with the movement of goods and services through our borders. And therefore, whatever proactive measures government needs to take, there can be no justification for the continuous closure of Ghana's land borders. Therefore, as a minority, our primary concern this afternoon is to call on the President, as chair of ECOWAS, to do that which is needful to give meaning to the resolutions he so chaired for ECOWAS to pass, to allow and facilitate the free movement of goods and services between us, our neighbors, and the rest of the world.
On the matter of a directive for teachers to pay rent for occupying government bungalows, former ranking member on the Works and Housing Committee, Emmanuel Bedra, called on government to exempt teachers in the rural areas.
With this policy, especially when government is encouraging teachers to go to the rural areas to teach, this could be an incentive for those who are in the rural areas, so that government can waive off this rent allowance, and so that government can absorb that for the maintenance of the place. So I want to appeal to government that those who are in the rural areas, as a way of motivating them, they should allow those people, because we put up a lot of bungalows. When it comes to my constituency, for instance, I have teachers' bungalows dotted all over the places, and most of them have not been paying. And when they ask me whether they should pay or not, I say they should pay. But because it's a rural area, I think government should waive off the rural areas one. But it is government policy that every staff, government worker who stays in the government.
The Minority Caucus on the Foreign Affairs Committee visited the site of the demolition. Upon arrival, the security man at post during the act explained what transpired.
I came in here 1 year ago. When I came, there's no building here, but I know this place belongs to Bulgaria. There was a building here. So when they came to clear the land, my boss came in and told them they should stop. The police came and stopped them, pulled everybody out. They went and they came back. And since up to now, they are still working.
After the tour, the ranking member of the committee, Samuel Ablakwa, called for an inquiry into the incident.
The Bulgarians have a valid lease which has not run out. The Lands Commission has confirmed that that lease is up to 2033, renewable. So it's up to, if you own a property, whatever you want to do with it, whether you want to use this as embassy or consulate or a residence, you own it. And diplomatic premises are diplomatic premises. You cannot intrude, you cannot invade the premises, and you cannot enter without express permission from the head of mission, then those who are in possession. How is it that the foreign ministry has appeared so helpless all this while? All these months, they've appeared so helpless. And look at the level of construction. We have a situation where even after the Lands Commission, following a directive by the Lands Minister to come notify the workers here to stop work, you have these culprits show up with such bravado. The impunity, the total disregard for our laws is shocking, totally shocking. And that is why we in the NDC caucus are calling for a full-scale inquiry.
Back in the House, the Minister for Trade and Industry was on the floor to answer questions on the One District, One Factory policy. He indicated, among others, that the promoter for the project to be situated at the Upper Manya Krobo district in the Eastern region had not secured the required guarantees. The MP for the area, Bismarck Tete Nyako, spoke to Citi News about the project.
This answer, that's the first time I've heard of that company. When I googled, they gave me some in Accra, and some name in the US or so, which is an electrical electronic company, sort of. Then further check showed me some in Accra, but I've not been able to get the exact address. So I thought the minister would be able to help us at least with where they are located, to make it easier for me to make follow-ups there. You see, we need that company, because a lot of cassava is produced there. When you came, that enclave, the road to the secondary school where we came, the company is on that, between the market and the secondary school. That's where they
have some footprints on the ground.
No, there is only signboard, and that one, the termite have also eaten everything down.
The Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abdullah Ejinapo, delivered a statement on the role of persons of old from the Savannah region and their involvement in the struggle for independence. Over the past few days, there has been renewed clashes in Bawku. Some soldiers have even been affected by the clashes. The matter was raised in the House by Asamase MP Muntaka Mubarak. Some colleagues contributed before the presiding speaker issued a summons for the National Security, Defense and Interior Ministers to be present in Parliament to brief members on the happenings in Bawku.
I know the conflict is a very long, outstanding issues, but the current happening is not very healthy for us. And I want to give you, Mr. Speaker, that if we can get these ministers to come and brief the House, so that at least the House is versed with what is happening and what steps they are taking. Because, Speaker, there's even some accusation about the personnel that are there, the officers that have been sent there, belonging to some of the factional groups. I think it is important that we get the Ministers of Security to brief us, so that at least what our colleagues from that enclave also know can be relayed to the ministers for them to see what action they can take to help save the further escalation of the violent and mayhem that is going on there.
In the circumstance, I direct that the Minister for National Security, with the assistance of the Minister for Defense and Interior, do brief the House urgently on the security situation in Bawku. are so direct.
Still in the House, former Minister for Power, Dr. Kwabena Donko, called on government to, as a matter of urgency, reduce the price of fuel products.
Call on government to scrap some of the taxes, like the special petroleum tax, and reduce those they cannot scrap. I am aware that the recommendation had been made to the Minister of Finance, and Ministry of Finance is reluctant to implement the recommendation and even the directive of government. And this is absolutely unacceptable. The Ghanaian people are suffering from high prices. Yes, the externalities cannot be discounted, but there is a section that is within our control. So we cannot ride totally on externalities and justify the current prices.
Some members of the minority also announced that they had filed a private member's motion for a bipartisan committee to be constituted to probe the killing of some policemen suspected to be involved in recent bullion van robberies.
It appears we have allowed our security agencies to be infiltrated by rogue elements. These are matters that needs to be interrogated thoroughly in the public inquiry. Lastly, it is even more compelling for us to have this inquiry because, you see, we cannot all the time expect the police administration to investigate themselves when matters of this nature happen. The Asawasi shooting incident is a classical example.
Hello and welcome back from the break. This 18% across the board, diesel selling over 10 cedis, super or petrol selling a little above 9 cedis. And we are told that with the prevailing global conditions and the free fall downward spiral of the Ghana cedi, things could get worse. My guest knows the ins and outs of this industry and is currently the ranking member on the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament. John Abdullah Jinapo is my guest. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
With a deregulated market space, many are of the view that there's very little government can do about the cost of fuel in the country. You disagree, obviously.
Well, first of all, we are in a deregulated sector. Mm-hmm. What it means is that you do not want to pile up debt. If you pretend as if you are subsidizing and not paying for it, it creates a huge problem.
Okay.
Taking cognizance of that, the NDC government introduced what we call the Price Stabilization and Recovery Levy.
Okay.
Because we knew that in a deregulated sector, you can have price going up and down. We thought it prudent and wise to institute what you call the Price Stabilization and Recovery Levy. What you're supposed to do is to take some levies on every liter of fuel we buy, save that money, and use that money in times like this. And so it is not completely true that government can do nothing in a deregulated sector. And I've checked the bills. If you look at the monies that have been collected so far, we've collected over 18 billion from the energy sector recovery levy.
Since its inception?
Since its inception. Over 2 billion of that must accrue to the Price Stabilization and Recovery Levy. Mm. I've looked at the figures, and I can tell you that only 15 billion has been spent in terms of disbursement. So what it means is that we should have another 3 billion sitting down that can be used to cushion petroleum prices. That is one. Two is that we also thought it wise to establish a bulk storage and transportation company. What you do is that BOST currently has a margin in the price buildup.
Yeah.
They are supposed to stock strategic reserves up to about 12 weeks. What BOST ought to do is to look into the window because petroleum prices fluctuate.
Yeah.
When the prices are low, they take enough stock and keep it. When the prices go high, as we are witnessing, then you release them on a drip basis in order to cushion the sector. BOST has been missing in all this whole petroleum issue.
What have they been? What do they do now?
I think that they become moribund. They are not doing anything, in my opinion. Meanwhile, their levies have gone up by about 200%.
But they have depots all around, from Bupe, which is close to your constituency.
So the question is that what is
Tema,
BOST doing?
what are they doing?
So that is the question. What are they doing in these difficult times? And then when you look at the price build-up, today Ghana's petroleum price at the pump is the most expensive out of 33 African countries. Yesterday I did all the analysis, and I can give you the reference to check.
But some say it's competing favorably in the sub-region, Senegal and the rest, just around the same.
That is not true. Senegal is cheaper than Ghana. Rwanda is cheaper than Ghana. Uganda is cheaper than Ghana. Cote d'Ivoire is cheaper than Ghana.
And it's all because of the taxes.
Nigeria is cheaper than Ghana. Two main issues. The taxes and the free fall of our currency. Today our currency is the worst currency in Africa. And so when we go to the global market, all of us buy at the same price because there's a standard. And so depending on what you are buying, we are virtually buying at the same price. But when we come to our domestic markets, then you must convert that same quantity in dollar-denominated terms to your domestic or local currency. That is where the Ghanaian cedi is struggling. And then the taxes.
The contention has been that if you look at the tax component, even if you decide to scrap that, it would be negligible. A pesos here, 20 pesos there, 30 pesos here. Consumers wouldn't really feel the impact.
The price stabilization is a huge amount.
Okay.
If you look at the energy sector levies, especially, and let me just give you some referral. If you look at the energy debt recovery levy in particular, it's not a small amount. The energy debt recovery levy is about 49 pesos, the road fund levy 48 pesos, energy fund levy 1 cedi. And so when you add all this, these are huge sums of money. And then even within the industry,
on a liter of fuel,
like,
all these on a liter,
not a gallon, on a liter, about 3.78 liters makes a gallon. About 55 gallons makes a drum. And I think about 11 or so drums make a ton. And so when you move into tons, then you are talking of huge sums of money. The other issue I'm asking is that, for instance, fuel marking levy, what does it do? We have all these tracking systems put in place. So why impose a fuel marking levy? But there's another major component that we ought to have.
Does the fuel marking levy go to?
MPA takes that money, keeps it in their account, awards so-called contracts to people to put some coloration.
For the premix fuel?
No, for the normal fuel. So diesel is supposed to have a different color. Petrol is supposed to have a different color. But when you look at the pricing now...
Why must the MPA do that? Why should the company do that?
That is the question. Why should the MPA do that? Why are the companies not doing that? I think that we used to do that because there was a huge disparity between diesel, petrol, and kerosene. And people used to buy the cheaper fuel to adulterate the expensive one in order to make some profit. But now that the fuel prices are almost at par, I think that it ought to be looked at. But one major issue that I have been talking about has to do with the money we also make when we export petroleum products. Because Ghana is a petroleum exporting country. We export petroleum products. And when you look at the budget, we have a positive trade balance largely on account of petroleum products. I agree that not all that petroleum products belong to Ghana, but at least we get between about 20 to 30% of that. If you take our carried and participating interest, if you take our commercial interest, if you take the royalties, which is a huge amount, and also what we get from surface rentals, corporate tax, and the rest. That's a huge amount. In the 2022 budget, the minister projected that we'll be getting $61 per barrel.
That's the indicative.
The 2022 budget. 2022 budget. Today we're doing about 120.
Double?
It means, yes, that what it means that we're making double what?
Windfall.
And we estimated to make about 6 billion. And so just on the back of the envelope, within this short period alone, we're making another 500 million. That's a huge amount that can be used to do something. Because we put taxes on petroleum products in order to get revenue. So if you are getting huge revenues from our export, it only makes sense that you can do a balancing out or a net off. Moreover, when you look at the imports, consumption is increasing on a very fast rate, at a very, very fast rate.
More Ghanaians are buying cars.
Yes, not just cars. We are consuming more fuel because maybe we stay more in traffic maybe we drive over long distances. So it's not just a function of the number of cars, but the manner in which you spend in traffic, the distance, people are moving out of the city to live at very far places. And so they consume more. What it means that your revenues are increasing. Because your revenue is a function of quantity and price.
True.
So even at a fixed price, when the quantities of volumes are increasing, then you are making some good money. And if you read the budget, the minister himself attests to the fact that we are getting some huge revenues from the volumes. So I think something can be done about all these issues in order to cushion it. The key question is, what are our neighbors doing such that their fuel prices are cheaper than ours?
Just for Nigeria, we know that
I'm not talking Nigeria.
Volumes.
I'm talking Benin. I'm talking Togo. I'm talking Burkina.
Cote d'Ivoire.
I'm talking Cote d'Ivoire.
What are they doing?
Countries that do not even produce oil.
What are they doing?
They are putting in place good economic policies even in the advent of COVID. Their currencies are not falling the way our currencies fall.
That's true.
If you look at the current price and you do the weighted averages, the currency depreciation is even the biggest amongst them.
But if you are looking at our neighboring countries, most of them are in a common monetary zone. Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, Benin, all of them are in the CFA zone. Well, they have a stronger currency because of that. We don't have the benefit of that.
They have a stronger currency because they are managing the economy.
And because they are together in a common economic zone.
So take Africa. Why is Ghana's currency the Western Africa?
Okay, well.
Rwanda is not in a CFA. Uganda is not. Zambia is not. Tanzania is not. Senegal is not. A lot of Ethiopia, mention them. Their currencies are not plummeting the way our currency is plummeting. And the vice president has been quiet. As head of the economic management team, I expect the vice president to show leadership. You show leadership in difficult times. What is government's plan towards the currency? That is very important. They should tell us. At least Ghanaians deserve to know. The currency is falling. The cedi is weakening. What is government doing to arrest that? Fuel prices are rising. We want to hear something from government. At least government should tell the people of Ghana that yes, we reckon and acknowledge that these are difficult moments, but we are putting in place measures and we are looking at A, B, C, D. So we expect that the ordinary Ghanaian and everybody would support what we are doing. Government is being mute. We are not hearing anything. But you see, it's also important to look at one other factor. We have a refinery sitting in Tema. That refinery can process 65,000 barrels of crude oil per day.
What is the problem with all?
The problem
recently
is that
we heard that a management committee has been put in place. Somebody has been appointed to go and to be head of the place. Meanwhile, it's not running.
The problem is that in 2018, this government decided that they will convert Tor into a tank farm. What it means is that Tor eventually would no longer process crude, and that we're going to build 150,000 capacity barrel capacity of refinery at Takoradi. And they would have been finished by 2022.
Yeah.
That was the promise. In fact, the board chairman a year after told us that they've secured the land, they've secured the funding, and in 2022, that refinery will be functioning. If you process 120,000 barrels of crude, normally there's a ratio of 3:1.
Yeah.
That's to say, when you put 3 barrels of crude in a refinery, you are likely to get 2 barrels of diesel or kerosene, and then 1 other oil, like heating oil and the rest. Yes. So nothing has happened. As I speak to you, not even a penny, not even a cedi has been invested in that project.
The Petroleum Hub was at the Dubai Expo looking for money, looking for investors.
We have even allocated so much money, I think about $10 million every year to the Petroleum Hub. And yet when I went there, nothing is happening. So the question is that what is government's game plan in terms of refining our own crude oil? During our time,
but Honorable, the question is,
2 million barrels of crude oil, give it to Tor to process. This government took over and sold that parcel of crude oil.
The question is, even if Tor gets up running again, what is the likelihood that those who are producing the oil, oil from here, from the 10 fields, Jubilee and the rest, would want it refined here?
I'm saying that we did it before. We're not even reinventing the wheel. We procured 2 million barrels
from the partners
from
here?
the 10 fields,
okay,
and gave it to Tor to process. They had some challenges, and when you start a process like this, you are going to have some initial challenges.
True.
Just like when we started with our Tuabo gas processing plant, there were challenges. Today, the turbo gas processing plant produces and has a capacity to supply half of Ghana's LPG needs. In fact, if you read the 2016 and 2017 energy sector report, import substitution alone in terms of crude oil from the gas is about $300 million.
So question is, we are making the same argument for Boston. I keep on saying Boston for Tor. If Ghana Gas is giving supplying half of our LPG needs, why does LPG also go? Because LPG, we are all on this crusade to stop felling trees for charcoal and the rest, and it's really helping. But LPG on the side, on the quiet, is also going up. Meanwhile, we are doing half of it here.
Yes, but LPG is not going as high as petrol and diesel, if you look at it. The truth is also that if you import half of that amount and your currency is depreciating like we are witnessing, because the currency is depreciated more than 14% as we speak in less than 3 months, certainly that will be passed on because businessmen necessarily have to recoup in order to deal with that. And so that's why I'm saying that we ought to process our own crude. When you do that, you no longer import. When you do that, it strengthens your currency. When you do that, you have a lot of products from petroleum. Because when you process crude, it's not just the diesel, it's not just the kerosene, it's not just the petrol. You get other byproducts, including the pharmaceutical sector. You get products like bitumen. You get so many other products that you can use internally, which then puts less pressure on your currency. But it does appear that government has no plan. This government has run out of ideas. I don't even get a sense of what they really want to do. At least you should have a vision. You should have an objective. You have a target. So that even if you are not achieving that, at least you are striving and trying to get something. They told us that they were coming up with policies to cushion us with prices. As I speak, nothing is happening. And so if it's just about buy and sell and just transfer the cost implications to the ordinary Ghanaian, then you probably don't even need the MPA. We don't need the MPA. What are they doing? We don't need them if this is what they're going to do. Regulators. Yes, but regulation is about the consumer as well.
True.
Regulation is about taking the interest of the consumer into account.
Okay. So the minority has been, calling for this, the scrapping of taxes since time immemorial. We've seen time and again how private members' motions have been used to achieve certain effect. Is the minority considering a private member's motion at least to hold the energy minister, the finance minister, to present concrete plans, a question time, or even summoning them as to what is the plan to cushion consumers? Because it's already 10 cedis. It could go up if we in no less time we could be buying fuel for 15 cedis a liter if things keep going the way it is going.
At this rate, if nothing is done, even before the middle of the year, fuel price would have gone up by 100%.
What?
As we speak, we are hitting around 70%.
Yeah.
Since January, in less than 3 months, fuel prices have gone up by close to 70%. This is unprecedented, especially since we started deregulation.
Yeah.
This has culminated in inflation at a double digit as we speak. Transportation prices have increased by 15%. I've just heard the drivers union announce that they're going to increase it again.
Because it's gone up by 18%.
Yes, and yet salaries have gone up by just 7%. They are still pushing e-levy down our throats. The cost of living is difficult, my brother. The ordinary Ghanaian is suffering. Workers are suffering. Market women are suffering. MPs are even suffering the more because when our constituents suffer, they try to fall on us for support.
Effect, yes.
And we buy our own fuel. We pay for our own vehicle. I pay my secretary in this office. I pay my secretary. I pay my research assistant. So it's difficult. And I think that government must sit up. When we advocate, when we speak, it's not just for the man walking on the street. It's for all of us. In difficult moments, what governments do is to find a way of cushioning Ghanaians. I haven't seen even one. But worst of all is even the misapplication, the misappropriation of the funds that is accruing to the state. And I've just told you that if you look at the energy sector levies, 3 billion cannot be accounted for.
What?
3 billion cedis. And I have the records here. 18 billion collected, 15 billion spent. I've checked in the logbox. The logbox is an escrow account where the unspent monies must go into so that those monies will be used for other things. It's not in the logbox. That means that they've used it for other...
Finance Ministry.
Finance Ministry is using the money for non-related expenditure.
3 billion.
3 billion cedis. And let them come and debate me on this.
That's half of what we project to collect from the e-levy.
That's a huge amount. That's a huge amount. They've used it for other non-related areas. And when I checked, they've used it for pensions. They have capped some and used it for so-called expenditure. That is not related to the Energy Sector Levies Act. And so we are in a very serious situation.
Okay, from your projection calculations, if we take all these, if we have this subsidy from the windfall, and we take away the components you are talking about, how much should a litre of oil be selling?
That is not something you just sit and decide. We must decide how much we are allocating to that.
Okay.
If I know the figure, then I can run the model and tell you that
prices.
it can lead to it. But in these difficult moments, no matter how small the reduction is,
there was one before the year ended. There was a margin that
they withdrew the price stabilization levy when the price was at 80. Today is at 120. They've brought it back. They've brought the price stabilization recovery levy back
because it was so clearly unsustainable.
So it was a populist move.
The reserves ran out. So.
It was a populist move that was not anchored on any sound economic footing, and that's where we are running to this. But one other issue is the inefficiencies even at the downstream. I'm doing a chart and I'll show it to the media very soon.
Okay.
Between 2019, 2020 and 2001, the inefficiencies that NPA supervised, companies were registered. All of a sudden, companies that were doing just about 0.1% suddenly moved to 12%.
PDCs?
I am talking of OMCs, oil marketing companies.
Wow.
Especially in 2020. 12% comparable to Total, comparable to Goyle, comparable to Shell. And they had no filling stations. And yet we're lifting millions and millions and millions
Who is tracking that?
Right after the election, these companies vanished.
Wow.
And I'll give you the records. Huge liftings. Within 1 year, they make huge liftings, especially in the election year. And I have gone to the Registrar General's office to track the owners of these companies. I'm coming up with all these details.
Very well. Thank you very much, Honorable John Jinapo.
Thank you, my brother.
Okay. Welcome back. As you notice, we've been discussing matters in relation to the escalating prices of fuel and fuel products in the country. In the first interview, we spoke to the ranking member on the Mines and Energy Committee. Now I have with me the chairman of the Mines and Energy Committee of the House MP for Bawku South, a lawyer par excellence. We'll be delving in some legal issues as well. The Honorable Samuel Atacha is my guest. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
It must be not so good times for government, looking at how prices of fuel are going up, and it's that one commodity that when it goes up, it affects almost everything else. And thankfully, I wouldn't say thankfully, for whatever it is, now as a member of parliament and not as a minister of state, you have to fuel your cars yourself. So you must be feeling the pinch as well.
Well, it's quite unfortunate because of what you've rightly said. That anytime you have hikes in petroleum products, there's a domino effect. And it's cascading like that. And everybody who uses that commodity, and wherever the commodity also helps in running the economy, there will be challenges. So this is the state of affairs, and we cannot run away from it. But I think it will improve. That is my reckoning. What has contributed immensely regarding the price hikes in petroleum products, as you know, that the cedi is challenged.
Yes.
And you see, any time that the cedi is depreciating vis-a-vis the strength of the dollar, it means that then prices will have to go up. You need more cedis to buy what you could have bought with just a few dollars. And because the commodity we use for this economy called petroleum is a dollar-denominated product, essentially, will have these challenges. Yes. And therefore, what is happening is that why is the city having this kind of nosedive?
Some minority says it's poor economic management.
Well, it's also got to do with the fact that those who have to invest here are not too comfortable with the fact that our revenue sources are challenged and are limited. For example, you don't want to come and invest in the economy in which your expenditure is so high and your revenue is so low. And that is why I am of the humble view that when we improve upon our revenue, the confidence will be boosted back. And that is when we see the city climbing up.
If you have a deficit, there are two ways to go. Should I improve your revenue or cut your expenditure? Why not cut your expenditure?
Well,
we talk about the size of government. We talk about the sheer size of the operation of government, office of government machinery. Cut down wasting government.
Well, I'm educated that the expenditure lines of the whole, setup, have been cut by 20%.
Some say it could go down further.
Well, looking at the fact that if it's not going to hurt eventually, you see, when you cut in expenditure, it should be measured because of, as usual, how it will impinge on the other areas of the economy. So if they go gingerly and they come to terms with the fact that, by cutting the expenditure by 20%, the economy is not damned and we are not in, a serious crisis, they could cut it down further. So if it's in an incremental basis for us to measure the effect of cutting it down, I think it's a wise thing that they might want to do. And let's see how it pans out.
If we look at the petroleum price build-up, and this is something that, government for years have done. If they want an easy way of raising money, slap taxes on petroleum, special petroleum tax, price stabilization, toll debt recovery, so many taxes, pollution, sanitation levy, all of that is on the taxes. It's on petroleum products, right? So it's now left with some of the OMCs who want to have a higher market share, who tinker with their margins to have some sort of price stabilization or some price fluctuation depending on how many customers they want to attract. Many have said that looking at how the prevailing global market prices, government, especially the special petroleum tax, the price stabilization levy, these taxes should go to cushion the ordinary Ghanaian.
Well, I am amazed at the mastery you have on this subject. And when you prompted me that we'll have this interview, I looked at some of the taxes and I counted 11 taxes on the product. 11. So we have the special petroleum tax, energy debt recovery levy, road fund levy, energy fund levy, price stabilization and recovery levy, sanitation and pollution levy, primary distribution levy, bust levy, fuel marking margin, marketers margin, dealers, retailers / operators margin. 11 in all. So with the greatest of respect, that's a huge weight on one product. So I think plans are far advanced to rationalize, if you like, this cocktail of taxes that are having very serious implication on the price of petroleum.
So should we take your word for it that there's going to be some reduction? Government is going to bring in some funds for better palliatives to
it's imperative. It's a very sensitive government. If you care to know, the government that decided that the poor people and their children should not pay school fees. The government that said that we are in very critical times. COVID period, people should have good water and they should have it for free. Electricity for free. The sensitivity of President Akufo-Addo, people don't know. He's a very, very, very fatherly figure for us. So these issues, I know for sure they will address them. Because we don't want a situation in which one product, with the greatest of respect, is causing huge damage to the entire economy.
We have two problems. First of all, this is a forex issue, essentially, 18% increment. We have a refinery that has the capacity to refine oil products locally, the Tamale refinery, sitting there. There are plans to convert it into a tank farm. That has not been done. It's still not refining product. Professionals who are there, most of them are leaving to the Gulf, to places where their knowledge base will be utilized. That's one. Then there's also the fact that we export petroleum. And the indicative price that the finance minister pegged our oil at in the budget was $61. Now we're hovering somewhere around $120, which means that government is going to make a windfall, a serious windfall. Some experts peg that calculation at about some $550 million. Dollars, just windfall from the prices. So there's a view that, take a part of the windfall, cushion consumers with some subsidies of some sort, and get BOST working, because if as BOST also another problem, but get TOR working. If all these things work, prices would come down.
Well, I think I can't question the wisdom of what you say. Understand? If at a point in time, even some of the taxes were underpinned by the fact that crude oil prices might go low and very low, therefore we needed some money as a backup in the event of it going that terrible for us. Well, now you can see that the reasons for some of the taxes have become redundant. By reason of the fact that crude oil prices are going up, and as we've rightly said, we have some windfall. So I would want to sit down here and play the Minister for Energy. But these are the factors that should minister to him that it's about time to have a paradigm shift. And address the energy issues frontally, given the new state of facts and even the numbers. And then let the institutions that will help us the most get the experts, the raw material, and the rest running. If, for instance, you get the refinery working hard, I'm tempted to believe in the West Africa enclave, people will come and refine their crude oil in Tema, and we have the benefit. So I don't want to poke my nose too much into what might be the issues that are turning the Ministry of Energy, which essentially the cabinet will look at and approve. Because it is imperative that certain things must change, given the changes of the times.
Your committee has oversight for the energy sector, petroleum price and all. Have you had any, I won't say agitation, but have you had any, pinch or some sort of awakening or some sort of jolting from members to, for instance, have a conversation with the energy minister on
Certainly.
OMCs?
Certainly. In fact, we have a very solid program for this year. And one of the high points is to engage the energy minister as to what he's going to do to turn the situation around. It's very, very important. But for a few challenges of timing, we'd have had our first one next week.
Okay.
But the one who oversights, the one who steers the affairs of the committee has to leave for Indonesia. And she's going to come back, and then we'll look at these matters.
All right.
But what I will say for sure, that the Mines and Energy Committee is not going to sort of go to bed. We are very much awake, and what is very needful, you will pass it on to the Minister for Energy, and he has to work with them and look at them critically, because the issue of energy cuts across party lines. We are not doing politics at all. I'm very, very, very blessed to have former ministers on the other side. And so now when we sit and we banter and we trade ideas, you could see that it's only the ideas that will affect the nation, which is uppermost. The rest of it is all propaganda, and we don't need propaganda at this time. You buy petrol and I buy petrol, so where is the propaganda?
Okay, let's move away from the fuel stations to the courtroom. There was a landmark ruling of the Supreme Court per the instance of Justice Abdullahi, and the Supreme Court ruled, and of course 29-page ruling from Yoni Kulendi JSC, indicating clearly that deputy speakers who are presiding have voting rights, and this seems to be consistent with what the majority side essentially had held on the floor of Parliament, and then subsequently went ahead to strike down certain portions of the standing order. Some say that this judgment, with the greatest of respect, is, the Speaker of Parliament shares that view, even though he's been out of the jurisdiction, is an encroachment by the judiciary, the powers of of Parliament and makes nonsense of to for an Attorney General and other such judgments of the Supreme Court?
Well, it's very unfortunate for people to posture intellectually that way, because at the end of the day, if you look at what was at stake, you see clearly that the Supreme Court has sanitized the system. And the Supreme Court has hallowed the very Constitution which defines the remit of a Parliament. It brings to mind what one of the jurists I respect so much, Professor Tatiba, said, that it is eminently sensible. And I'm going to show you why this decision is eminently sensible. You see, if you pay regard to the role of the Speaker as defined by the Constitution, the Speaker should not be a member of Parliament.
True.
Good. And then when you pay regard to who should be a first Deputy Speaker, a second Deputy Speaker, they are people who come from the membership of Parliament.
Yeah.
And when you were a member of Parliament, in terms of the, the Constitution, you form part of the people who constitute the quorum, and you also have voting rights. So you can never divorce these two powers from a member of Parliament. A member of Parliament will help constitute the quorum, and a member of Parliament will help also take a decision and vote. So let me pose this question. Don't you think it would be counterintuitive to say that Atachia is a member of Parliament but he can't vote? That is the essence of the decision.
There are instances where the Constitution bars members of Parliament from voting. The judgment indicated that, for instance, when a transaction is for Parliament and you have an interest in that transaction, you are barred from voting. So the Constitution talks about such.
You see, that is different. You are not barred from voting, but you are disqualified from voting because of conflict of interest.
Yes.
You see, but voting is an inherent part of your work as a member of Parliament. You see, so if you sit in the chamber and you can't vote, then you are a stranger to the chamber. And I don't see why anybody should say that the judiciary is trying to interfere in the affairs of the Parliament.
Parliament is a closed book, they say.
It is not. You see,
a master of its own rules.
You see, that issue is very, very disturbing when they say that we are masters of our own rules. Can we craft a new constitution? We cannot.
No.
It means that we can suspend the rules and let convenience work. I'll show you one example. We know that we need a quorum to do what we call winnowing. That is to say, converting the bill into law. The process of doing that. Half the time, consideration stage and the rest of it. Half the time, I want to prompt you, and you have been observing us. The people who sit down to dot the I's and cross the T's, they don't number 30. But because we are masters of our own rules, we relax and then go through the process until decisions are taken. So that's not what it means. It doesn't mean that we can rewrite the Constitution to suit the convenience of Parliament. That is not what the Constitution says.
In fact, former president, who is also a member former member of Parliament, has called this ruling all sorts of things. Called it absurd. He says it doesn't. And in fact, has encouraged the appellant to seek a review.
What is going to swear him into office? The very Constitution. So you can't rubbish the Constitution because you think that it's not palatable to you.
He's critiquing the judgment of the Supreme Court.
It is very sad. The judgment of the Supreme Court is founded on the very Constitution. So how can you rubbish the Constitution this way?
So you don't agree with those who are asking for him to go for a review? You think this is clear? No need to waste the court's time?
I am of the humble view that the decision is so eminently sensible and the logic is so strong that you plunge into the theater of the absurd and trying to change the minds of 7 individuals to come to your side. I think it's an uphill task that if you sought my view as a lawyer of some considerable standing, I will not waste my energies.
It's been said variously that the majority is in dire straits. In dire straits because one of its key tax policies, the e-levy, has not seen the light of day as we speak. Apart from other obstructions, there's a question of someone you know very well, someone you helped train as a lawyer. MP for Dom Kwabena, former deputy majority leader. Some say she's holding the majority to ransom. She's not been cited in the House. She's gone past the constitutional threshold of 15 sitting days without permission from the Speaker. And as we speak, Adwoa Safo is nowhere to be found.
Wow. It's one of the tragedies, I call it, that we are being confronted with. that if for the reason of the fact that a member of parliament is holding the entire government to ransom, then it is sad indeed. I don't want to believe that. There might be some reasons unknown to all of us.
Have you had contact with her of late?
Well,
when was the last time you spoke to her?
Well, the last time I had contact with her is when we were trying to consider the e-levy and she flew back from the United States.
When there was controversy about whether she was the one who was in the chamber
one
or
was
not.
seated in the chamber or there's somebody who's dressed up like her. And that was also very vain propaganda. If you can't see the difference between a woman and a man, I don't see why you should be on the House floor as a member of parliament. Okay. But let's pose this question. Apart from ill health of serious consequence, I do not see why Adjoa Safo should not be in the chamber. I want to say this. And if it is a way of blackmailing the government, I've heard all manner of theories that I want this position or I want that position. I don't have the facts. We have not heard from her. And because of my training, I have to listen to the other side. Then it is very unfortunate and she should buckle. Because let me tell you, we sit in this chamber not because of position. We sit in this chamber because we want to serve the nation. So service to the nation is what is first. If they say you are a minister of finance, it's a bonus. That is not your primary duty to be a minister of finance, but you want to serve the nation. So my advice to Adjoa, wherever she finds herself, using this your august medium, is that she should put every pain or hurt or anything aside. If it's not a question of health, then she should proceed quickly to Ghana for the business to continue. But if she is not well, then I pray to the God I serve, Reverend Otavo's God, that she should have health and come and do the business of the house. But I can't see why all the troubles of the realm are being visited on her because of her absence. It's very unfortunate. And it doesn't sit well with her name. Because at the end of the day, what is it that you are looking for? Do you think you are courting needless attention? Are you an attention freak? Or you think that there's a country called Ghana and that country needs your vote to get some business done in the House floor? So I think it's a fairly simple matter and it should be remedied quickly.
Latasha, thank you very much for your time.
My joy, as always.
Yeah, this week on Duke's View, it's a pretty straightforward view. It's a pretty straightforward opinion that I have to put across. Essentially, an agenda I'm pushing on a platform about fuel prices and the fact that they are skyrocketing, and the fact that within just a space of about 2 months, it's gone from about 6 cedis to about 10 cedis, 4 cedis in just a space of about 2 months. That's out of the ordinary. To have all of that within just a few months. Well, it essentially may not be within the purview and control of government. But many people are also of the view, including myself, that government can do something about this. Look at the volume of taxes on petroleum in the country. And I don't need to belabor the point. 40 cedis here, 58 pesos here, 40 pesos, sorry, here, 49 pesos, 52 pesos, 11 taxes on fuel. Why? And it's the only commodity that has a cascading effect, a domino effect that affects almost everything. If fuel sneezes, every other thing, every other commodity in the country catches cold. It catches cold. So please, government, please, Mr. President, Energy Minister, Finance Minister, Mr. Finance Minister, we are told, we're reliably informed that there's a proposal on your desk that you're dragging your feet, you are reluctant to approve. If we are making $550 million, of course, the petroleum situation is not only a disadvantage to us, it's a gift and a curse. A gift and a curse. A gift to us because we are making a windfall of about $550 million per conservative estimates from experts. It's also a curse to us because we import most of our petroleum products. If our currency, the cedi, as is now grappling to catch up with the dollar, would have such effects. So if we do a balancing act, if we do a cost-benefit analysis, if we look at the pros and cons, it's unsustainable. If it goes on like this, first we'll be buying a liter of fuel at 15 Ghana cedis. Mr. President, 15 Ghana cedis. Parliament needs to do something about this. The energy and the finance ministers need to be summoned. A private member's motion needs to be put together to bring these MPs onto the floor of the House. Question time. So that they outline the concrete steps they are taking to cushion Ghanaians. Because it's getting out of hand. It's getting out of hand. People are buying diesel for almost 11 cedis. Petrol, super, 10 cedis. The least you get is 9.9 or 9.7. It's getting out of hand. It's getting out of hand. The ordinary citizens have to be cushioned. Just a few weeks ago, there was about 15 to 20% increment in fuel prices, 18 in transport fares, occasioned by, a long period of increases in fuel prices. Now it's gone up 18% again. The drivers soon will be demanding to affect everything else, because everything has got to do with transportation. Boss is asleep. Supposed to be a strategic reserve company, institution, keeping strategic stock that will be delivered at crucial times like this, but they are asleep. They are doing something else. Boss, wake up. Thor is also another sleeping giant. Please, this fuel matter needs to be arrested, and arrested fast. That's our wrap up Duke's View, and by extension the Chamber this week. My name is Duke Mensah Opoku. Still the heritage man. Keep enjoying Ghana, see Ghana, eat Ghana, wear Ghana, and be proud as a Ghanaian. Catch you same time next week on the same channel. Adios.